It's time for the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, where we talk about District 1 and 2 athletics week in, week out across the panhandle of Idaho. My name is Brandon Baney. Let's bring on the Big Daddy himself, Ryan Scaggs. What's up, Scaggs?
Not much. We'll talk about that track meet later, or right now. I don't know how we're going to address that one, but thank you. Yeah, just a little bit of madness here in the Scaggs household as we're entering wedding season. So yeah, that's been fun.
Yeah, big week for Big Daddy up there. So no, we're all right. You might be wondering what's with the Big Daddy stuff. Well, last week Coeur d'Alene High hosted the Big Daddy Track and Field Invite, but at the same time, this gives us a chance to plug your other podcast. You've got a podcast about fatherhood that
I do. Yeah. We haven't put out a lot of content in the last probably 4 months. We've just been so busy as dads. But yeah, no, I do another podcast that I run with one of my best friends, Tristan. And we talk about all things fatherhood. It's kind of fun. So
and it's called the Dadvocacy
podcast. Yeah.
Yes. Like advocacy, but with dads. So.
But with dads, yeah. I mean, it's just a podcast for and it's funny is like we look at our listenership and it's majority women. I don't know. Maybe they want to know what makes guys tick, and it's pretty easy. Is that we're simple creatures, in my opinion. But I think that men just don't get a lot of support, or they're not as willing to speak out about stuff. And so it's an opportunity to address things from like mental health to men's health to all sorts of stuff that you encounter. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. If you're a parent, you want to listen to something interesting, I think we have some great conversations in the podcast.
Yeah. So you can check that out wherever you download your podcast. You can also check out the North Idaho Prepcast wherever you download your podcasts. You can subscribe on Google, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. If you have an Android phone like I do, the preferred app is called Podcast Addict, and you can that's where I subscribe and download all of our IdahoSports.com Prepcasts. You can also listen on our website, IdahoSports.com. Right across the top of the homepage, you'll see on the navigation bar a tab called Prepcasts. From there's a drop-down menu. You click on North Idaho Prepcast. Boom, takes you right to the page with a little embedded player. You can play it there. Also, especially on this Prepcast, Scaggs, we've talked about this before, but our YouTube numbers are like through the roof compared to the other regional podcasts we do. So we get a lot of people that tune in as well on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel. And if you're hanging out on the YouTube channel, if you could subscribe there as well, that will help us get it out to more people. It's the little bell icon. You hit that, and then you're automatically notified every time a new episode gets uploaded. So
I mean, it's not fair. I mean, with us being so devilishly handsome, our YouTube numbers are, of course, through the roof. But
that's right. And video watchers only, little bonus, you get to see me with my glasses on today. I don't do that often, but man, the contacts were not cooperating today. So it's the way that goes. I'm one of those guys.
We'll just blame it on that, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm one of those guys too that like you're supposed to go every year to get new contacts, but I just I take a 1 year supply of contacts and I stretch it out into 2.
I'm like with my glasses. I'll get like a new prescription of my glasses probably once every 3 or 4 years. It's probably not what I'm supposed to do, but it's kind of what I do. So yeah.
Yeah. We're making optometrists everywhere cringe with our eye care.
Maybe Dr. Clump down in Lewiston's listening. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it then. Let's circle back to Big Daddy, the Big Daddy Invite, hosted by Coeur d'Alene last week. It seems like every week we're getting new school records that are being established and then broken. This time it comes at Lakeland High School in the boys 4x100 meter relay. Best time, not just in 4A, but also the entire state.
Yeah. Thomas Calder, Nick Noel, Terry Edwards, and Weston Saputsky with a school record 43.18 in the 4x1 in what was fairly cool conditions too. I mean, that wasn't the best conditions for that meet last week. This week, we're going to see temps in the 70s in the Inland Northwest, which is going to be awesome. I mean, we're going to see some really warm temps. So hopefully these times start really getting shaved off, which I think we could expect to see this record get broken a couple times. The way they're running with their exchanges and everything, I know that they're really high on this crew, and they're creeping up on that 4x2 record as well. So this could be something really interesting brewing for the Hawks there in track and field. They get maybe a couple state relay championships out of this crew.
Yeah, and they've got speed to burn, that's for sure. Post Falls won the team title on the boys' side, which isn't a surprise. We talked about this last week, how we thought Post Falls had potential to go down to state and come away with a trophy. The championship might be difficult, but at least a top 3 finish is definitely in the cards for Post Falls on the boys' side. And they've got so many great athletes up and down the lineup, specifically, in the shot put. Trevor Miller won the shot put at the Big Daddy Invite, 51 feet, 10.5 inches. But the story came from the guy who took second. And if you'll recall, for the first 2.5 weeks of the season, the best shot put throw in the state belonged to Preston Jeffs of Lakeland. And he's since been surpassed by a couple of people. But at the Big Daddy meet, Preston Jeffs takes second. He throws the shot put 51 feet, 3 3/4 inches, and that sets a new school record at Lakeland in the shot put.
Yeah, no, that's a great job at Preston, the big dog out there, throwing the weight around, which he's got potential to hit a podium finish at state. I mean, he's a couple feet off, obviously, of the leader Keenan Blair from Jerome, but you get the right form and the right approach to heaving the weight around. He's going to be right there for a possible podium finish at state for sure.
Yeah, right now 4A shot put is looking like a 3-horse race with Preston and Keenan Blair from Jerome, who you mentioned, who is the current leader, and then also Tui Edwin from Skyline. He has been the shot put champion the last couple of years. And what's the common theme with all 4 or all 3 of those 4A guys? They all play football and they all excel on the offensive line, and so. That's going to be exciting to see unfold as we get closer to that. We've spent a lot of time on the Prepcast this spring talking about your 5A, 4A, 3A track and field athletes. This week, Ryan, you kind of dug deep into some of the smaller school individuals that are standing out.
I was wanting to look around. I was like, well, how's that 1A? Like, we haven't talked anything about, District 1 and 2, 1A track. And there's some kids that are quietly having some good times turning out, like Kofi Apaya from Mullen. In the 100, he's in the top 4. But the one that really stood out to me is kind of going through and you look at times in the hurdles. Brady Cox from Kamei with a 15.73 in the 110 hurdles, leading the state in the small schools as far as times there. That's a great job for him, and looking for a state championship in the 110 would be a big get for the Cubs.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting for Kamei. It's been an interesting spring sports season at Kamei. Usually the last couple of years, the Cubs baseball program has been very strong. They actually didn't have enough athletes out for the team this year. And so I think there's 2 or 3 Kamei guys that are playing with the Lewis County co-op of Nez Perce and Highland. But that's opened up, more track slots potentially.
Yeah. Well, the other one to look at is Porter Whipple on the shot put from Kamei, 51-1 toss, and he's leading the state by 5 feet. I mean, so that's a good toss by him, but like a good showing for the Cubs in track. Their teams have historically been fairly strong for small school track, and they compete pretty well against some of the bigger schools. I know that Lewiston heads to their track meet and usually see some good times turned in there up the Clearwater River.
Yeah, so it's good to see some of those male athletes doing awesome in the 1A ranks. And then on the girls' side as well, every Thursday, and we'll do this tomorrow. Every Thursday, we come out with a new tracking the field. It's our state track and field projections. I go through every Thursday morning, go through the leaderboards, score the meet. All right, if state happened today based on the leaders, here's how it would look. Here's the leader in each event. We do it 5A all the way down to 1A, boys and girls. It's a huge undertaking, but we do it every Thursday, and we're recording this on Wednesday, April 26th. I did want to give one more shout out on the boys' side real quick. Simone Tuikalavatu from Timberline. He is I believe he's a transfer student. We had the story at state basketball because Timberline from WEIP made it to state. But I believe he's either a foreign exchange student or he moved to Timberline but he has the best high jump mark in 1A at 6'4" as well.
That's
he is overtaking
pretty darn good.
Yeah, that's legit. I mean, that's what Trenton McLean of Post Falls has cleared, right? And that was the 5A standard for a long time. So we wanted to give a shout out to him as well. And I probably butchered that name and the story. I'll check in with Gary Jones, our 1A broadcaster. I know he had the story, and I'll come back next week with a better tale.
A better answer.
Yeah, I'll check in with old Gary. Okay, on the girls' side, when you look at the 1A, obviously.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the story is Logos.
Yep. I was going to say, and a single individual that's not only dominating the shorter distance runs, but the long distance too.
Yes. So Sarah Casebold, junior from Logos, has the best time in the mile and the 2 mile in the 1A ranks. She also has the best time in the 400-meter dash and the second best time in the 800-meter run. That would be.
I don't know if I've ever seen that. That's quite the. I mean, she's definitely well-rounded as far as athletic skill, and with a shorter distance or the longer distance, that's incredible.
Yeah, because it's usually one or the other, right? Usually, you're good at the distance races and okay at the sprints, or you're good at the sprints and so at the distance. But to see such a wide portfolio from because the 400 and the 3200 are two vastly different races.
Vastly different races.
to see Sarah Casebold excel so much, if she went to state and did all these events, you're looking at 38 points just from Sarah Casebold.
Yeah, and that she's also a member of that 4x4 team too. That who has the top time in the state in 1As as well. So there's another bit of points there that you could link to her. Having a hand in as well.
Yeah, and of course, when you get to state, there's limitations on how many events you can do. Yeah, I think it's 4.
I'm pretty sure it's 4. You're limited to 4 events.
So I got to double check that, but
because she's also on their 4x8 team that has the top time in the state as well. So
right, and that's the one part of the tracking the field that I can't really quantify, because it's like, well, how do you choose which of the 6 events for Sarah Casebold is she going to actually?
Only the second time in the 800, so we're going to go ahead and pull her from that event.
Right. Yeah. So, but it's not just Casebold, right? Logos as a team has some really good distance runners. Mary Killeen is just a sophomore. You've got senior Cora Johnson, sophomore Lizzie Crawford. So they've got potential to really pile up points, especially in those distance races. Alyssa Bloom is a junior that's really good. And so for Logos, they have potential to go to state and I think compete for the 1A championship. Now, Raft River is going to be tough to overcome, right? Raft River is very deep and talented, but Logos will be right there, I think.
Prairie, I think, is going to be in the mix too. I mean, I don't know if they're necessarily going to have enough firepower to finish on top, obviously, but I think that they're going to be in the mix. Based just on the field events. I mean, you look at, freshman Sage Elvin leading in the discus. The other day she threw 123 even. I mean, so she's got the top time there in the disc. That's pretty dang good for a freshman. And they got another freshman, Sydney Shears, in the high jump. She's got the second highest jump in the state. So, there's potential there for the Pirates as well to finish pretty well, because they're in a couple of the other events in like the 4x2 relay. They got the second best time in the 4x1. In the sprint events, they've been pretty competitive. I mean, look at Kristen Wemhoff. We've talked about her a ton on this with basketball, but she's not too shabby on the track either.
Right. Yeah, especially in those short sprints, the 1 and the 2, you're looking at a potential state champion there in Kristen Wemhoff. So yeah, we wanted to give some of our 1A track athletes some love, and I really do think, in terms of teams coming from North Idaho competing for championships, I really think, you go 5A all the way down to 1A, boys and girls. I really do think Logos girls have the best chance of actually coming home with a state championship trophy.
I would totally agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that as the season progresses for sure. Let's switch to baseball. So every week we do our heavy hitters and our primetime pitchers. Every Monday, it's heavy hitters, the 9 best hitting performances from the past week, baseball and softball. Tuesday is our primetime pitchers spot. And I'll tell you, Scaggs, I've already got, we're on Wednesday. We're not even halfway through the week. I already have 3 of the 5 slots filled on the primetime pitchers list, all from North Idaho, all from District 2, all from Tuesday night's level of competition. So let's start with the most impressive, and then we'll go to the least impressive.
Sure.
And this is all, I mean, they're all amazing. So, least impressive is, pejorative. But Levi Anderson from Moscow last night. Moscow's playing Sandpoint in a double dip. And they get a win in game 1, 2-0. This was a huge breakthrough win for Moscow, because we've been talking about for weeks that we think Sandpoint is still kind of the team to beat in the 4A IEL. In that contest, a single walk, the only blemish on Anderson's resume. His final stat line in that 2-0 win, he pitches 7 innings with no hits allowed, just the 1 walk, no runs, obviously, and 10 strikeouts.
That's a dominant performance, man. Holy cow.
What a job by Levi Anderson from Moscow.
Yeah, throwing a no-no, and then against a decent lineup for Sandpoint. I mean, they have guys in that lineup that can hit pretty well. I mean, you look at like Jack Zimmerman, some of the other players that are in that lineup have a pretty good record as far as, plate appearances. But to do that in a league game is just, that's flat dominant. And hats off. That's a great game out of their pitcher. That's an awesome job.
Yeah, pretty phenomenal stuff there. And Moscow, ends up, in the second game against Sandpoint as well. My computer's glitching. Sorry about that. The second game was just as tight. Sandpoint wins it by a score of 2-1 in extra innings. Went to the 8th inning, and the Bulldogs walked it off. So two very tight IEL contests last night.
I think we talked about that a little bit as we did our season preview, and I was like, watch out for this Bears team. I mean, like, they're kind of a ragtag bunch, but there's a lot of youth in that lineup, but there's talent there. And I think that's starting to show up later in the year. Obviously, we saw them take a few lumps early on in the season, but they've been in close ball games with the better teams in the IEL. So I'd really look at Moscow, and I'm like, I wouldn't say that Sandpoint's necessarily going to walk away with a league championship or a district title easily, because I think Moscow's definitely going to challenge.
Well, when you look at the current IEL standings, Ryan, at the 4A, Sandpoint 3-9, Lakeland 3-9, Moscow 2-9. So in terms of the loss column, they're all tied. And you might be going, geez, those are some pretty awful records. But you have to remember, they have to play these games against the 5A IEL teams that count for the conference standings. And so they've just been getting beat up by the 5As. Now it's going to crush whoever wins the North at state for the max preps. But I don't know. I don't know who wins this thing, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's a coin flip. It really is. I think who comes up hot in the last 2 weeks of the season really is the one that walks away with it. And right now, I mean, you're looking at it, it's like Moscow's starting to stretch up a little bit and step up the plate. And, if they can get that, right pitcher on the mound on the right day, like that's going to bode well, at least for the chances of getting to state. But if you look at the overall roster, I still like Sandpoint. But it's going to be interesting mix.
Yeah, and whoever wins the regular season title gets a leg up, right? Because they don't have to compete in that first play-in game. So that's huge.
That's really big. And then you look at the 5A, and it's like up is down and down is up, and you just don't know what to make heads or tails of the situation right now, just based on it's so tight. It's been interesting. So the IEL is a wacky league this year.
Yeah, Lake City was kind of the lead team there, and then after last night, they played Post Falls, and they've played Lake City's last 4 games have been all against Post Falls. They played twice on Saturday. Post Falls won 8-1, Lake City won 8-1 and 5-3. Then they played them again on Tuesday. This is like a postseason series here. The series shifted back to Lake City, and they lost to Post Falls last night 3-2 before picking up a 6-3 win. So they win the season series, take 3 of 4. All that's left for Lake City in the regular season now is a doubleheader at Coeur d'Alene High. And when you look at the standings, there's still a chance. Lake City's 15-1 in league. Coeur d'Alene is 11-3. If the Vikings earn the sweep there, they could force a tie for the regular season IEL title.
Yeah, which, I mean, I think for Coeur d'Alene, you'd take that if you're looking at how the season kind of started for the Vikings. Down the stretch, they've been able to play very well. With an 11-3 league record, I think is very, impressive. I think for the balance of the conference, you look at how it's been. There's Post Falls and Lewiston are both pretty good ball clubs, and they're having their own struggles. So it's like you look at Lewiston, it's like at 6-8, and you're like, how in the world are the Bengals last in the 5A IEL? With that lineup, and that just talks about the balance in this league is super competitive. All four teams are good clubs, but the Vikings, the chances of getting to state, and I think they could get there and maybe win a game or two even. But that I like Lake City, man. That team is just fun to watch. They can blast the cover off the ball. They hit really well, but they've been getting crazy good pitching, really good pitching, and really especially their fielding percentages through the roof. So like that's going to bode well if you get to the postseason for the T-Wolves. Like you play some good small ball, and you can knock a couple out, or at least get some get base runners, and then you get a couple of clutch hits. That's going to bode really well for you come postseason baseball time.
Yeah, so the Inland Empire League is kind of like in Major League Baseball, the American League East, where every single team is over 500. I'm a big Boston Red Sox fan. I don't know if people knew that or not, but I tune in pretty much every day. And the Red Sox weren't expected to be great this year, but they keep finding ways to win. And I'm like, all right, hey, they're 13-12. They have a winning record. That's great. Where are we at in the standings? Oh, last place, even though they're 13-12. Like
yeah.
The division is so good that somebody's got to take last, and currently that is Lewiston. So we will see how they rebound there. Okay, let's get back to our good pitchers from Tuesday night. We kind of diverted to the 5A ranks. So we had three awesome pitching performances last night. Levi Anderson for Moscow kind of gets the 3 stars for only allowing a walk. Our next guy allowed a walk and a hit. So the horror, he allowed 2 base runners. Drew Hanna from Orofino. Orofino's playing Grangeville last night. They get a 7-0 shutout win. In the victory, Hanna goes the distance, 7 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, and he had 8 strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that CIL, like Grangeville's quietly been having a really good year for I think what they were expected to be. We knew Orofino was going to be pretty darn good coming into the season, and they've I think met those expectations. They're currently top 5 in the polls, but that Orofino lineup, their pitching is stellar. They're going to be able to host state baseball. I think plays into their hands as well. So, the Maniacs find their way into the state tournament. They're going to be a dangerous, dangerous team that I don't think anybody there, even if you're looking at like Nampa Christian and Firth or Wendell, how you're top 3, nobody wants to face the Maniacs. Absolutely. I mean, that lineup it can light you up in a hurry.
Yeah. Look out is all I can say there. And then our third impressive pitching performance of the night. This was just a really good game overall. It was in the White Pine League at the 1A level. You had Potlatch taking on Troy, and Potlatch is kind of, they had a little turbulence early in the season, but they've kind of figured things out a little bit. And so through 7 innings last night, Scaggs, we're scoreless. Both pitchers just, throwing darts. Dominic Holden started on the mound for Troy, went 7 innings. He was his usual great self, 16 strikeouts against just 2 walks for Holden, and he only allowed a single hit. But at the same time, Jackson Vowles for Potlatch, even though he didn't quite match Holden's gaudy strikeout total, he pitched 7 1/3 innings and only allowed 1 run, and he had 7 strikeouts. So what happens is we're tied at 0s. We go to extra innings. We go to the 8th inning, and pitching for Potlatch still is Jackson Vowles, and he gives up a run. He finally gives up an RBI single by Dominic Holden. So Holden, not only pitched great, but he drove in the 1 run for Troy. Joseph Bendel score. Excuse me, it's the other way around here. So Bendel drove in, Holden. But anyways, 1-0 lead at that point. They pull Vowels. He had reached his pitch limit. They bring in a freshman, Jamison Morris, with a base runner on, and basically tell this kid, like, hey, we need to limit the damage here to 1 run. And he gets out of the jam, pitches 2/3 of a scoreless inning with a strikeout. So big time performance from the freshman Jamison Morris getting out of the jam. So it's 1-0 Troy going to the bottom of the 8th. And Dominic Holden has reached his pitch limit. So Troy calls on Eli Stoner out of the bullpen. And wouldn't you know it, Potlatch scores not once, but twice to walk it off and win in extra innings, 2-1. The heroes were Tyson Chambers, who came around to score. Waylon Marshall scored the other run. And it was Josh Biltonen who knocked him in. So Potlatch wins 2-1 in extras. What a fantastic White Pine game this was.
No, that's a great game. And you look at like the win-loss record for the Loggers. I mean, in their losses on the season, I mean, with the exception, take out the Colfax game, because Colfax in Washington, if you haven't watched Washington baseball, that team's really, really good. But Potlatch, I mean, all their losses are 1-run games. They lost 17-16 to Prairie. At the beginning of the season, they lost 3-2 to Clearwater Valley, who's leading the conference. I mean, so you look at what they're able to do. This team is dangerous, and they're kind of lingering, just hanging out. I think they're kind of a giant in waiting. They've had a couple. Well, they had the one game against St. Mary's that was postponed. They made it up and ended up beating the Lumberjacks. But the stretch that they've got coming up, they've got Lapway and a Twin Bill today. They've got Clearwater Valley tomorrow. They go back to Troy, or they play Troy at home on Monday. And then they've got a doubleheader against Kendrick and a doubleheader against Lewis County. That's a murderer's row to round out the year. So I think we're really going to see what this Logger team is made of. The way they've been playing, though, I mean, gosh, it'd be interesting how some of these guys can go on short rest, because there's not a lot of time between some of these games with the way things are going. Playing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. How deep is that bullpen of arms by the time you reach Clearwater Valley on tomorrow? That's going to be a really interesting game with a 2-day rest if they're able to, throw any of their starters that played yesterday against Troy. So, but they've been able to get clutch hits in big time, run production. So we'll see what they can do. But yeah,
this league, I mean, Clearwater Valley 8-0, and then there's just a glob of teams that are all within a game of each other in the loss column. Prairie 6-3, Kendrick and Troy 5-3, Potlatch 3-3, Lewis County 2-2.
Yeah,
Lewis County might be the big wild card. They've really backloaded the end of their schedule. And
they had a lot. And it's not their fault because of weather early in the season. But man,
right.
They're going to have to do it the hard way as far as figuring out how to get some wins and playing a lot of double headers. I think they're not going to do it the easy way. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at what's coming for the Eagles here. 2 games with Kendrick on Saturday the 22nd, 2 with Prairie on the 25th, 2 with Lapway on the 28th, 2 with Clearwater Valley on the 4th, and 2 with Potlatch to wrap up the year on the 6th. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 league games here over the next roughly
2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy.
Okay, that's a stretch.
Yeah. So, anyways, that'll be interesting to keep an eye on for sure. Softball, we did want to touch on real quick. The big matchup we were all, looking forward to was the non-conference battle between Potlatch and St. Mary's. Both could contend for state championships at their respective levels. St. Mary's at the 2A and Potlatch at the 1A.
Mm-hmm.
This was a game that was last Friday in St. Mary's, and it was a 2-0 win for the Lumberjacks.
Yeah, which, I mean, I think we all kind of thought that St. Mary's was going to be able to eke out a win, but it was how competitive was Potlatch going to make this, and I think they really showed their moxie in that game, holding it to 2 runs. But a pitcher's duel of sorts in that game. And obviously we know about Tacey Watkins and what she can do with the microscopic ERA. You can't have her in the primetime pitchers every single week, but you could just name the award after her because of what she's able to do week in and week out for the Lumberjacks. But St. Mary's, I mean, you look at both these teams, I think they're going to make deep runs come the state tournament. and I think they could both potentially walk away with titles. I really do see them both being right there in the mix in their respective classifications.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see. And then, following up that non-conference win over Potlatch, they turn around and play Orofino in a doubleheader on Saturday, and the Maniacs steal one 3-2 in the first game. And then St. Mary's was like, oh, that's how this is going to be. And then St. Mary's won 13-4 in the second game. But good on Orofino.
Orofino coming in and stealing a game and splitting that doubleheader is a big win for the Maniacs. And, a team that can get offensive run production, are they going to be able to get the consistency on the mound and on the bump? It's going to be interesting to see that they can make things interesting come district tournament time, though. But I think that, it's St. Mary's conference to win, obviously. But Orofino can push a little bit and make things, add a little drama to the situation.
Sure. So that's kind of what's been happening lately. Let's talk about what's coming up, because there's some big events on the horizon coming up this week. Specifically tomorrow, we've got golf Scaggs. The Kellogg Wildcats golf team. I don't want to get any of this wrong, so I'm going to pull up the social media post they had. Okay, they said, what do you do when your schedule is already different from previous years and the weather isn't cooperating much of it all? You improvise and collaborate. This Thursday, April 27th, that's tomorrow as we're recording this, Kellogg Golf will be collaborating with Silver Mountain and Galena Ridge Golf Course to host the first ever high school golf match at Galena Ridge. It's going to be St. Mary's, Wallace, Bonners Ferry, Timberlake, and Kellogg. Shotgun start 10 a.m., 18 holes. And this is we were talking off air before we came on. This is a breathtaking, beautiful golf course.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's the best. It's the nicest, least known course in the state of Idaho. Like, it's a 9-hole course. They're working on getting the expansion there. I was just looking at the weather for tomorrow. You're going to be in the mid to upper 60s. That's a gorgeous place to play. If you guys haven't seen or looked up Galena Ridge, it is a beautiful course. It's pretty difficult too, but it's a great little course, and they're making it into something that's going to be a destination course in my mind. What a cool opportunity for these kids to get to play that level of a course. I think in the high school season is going to be super neat to see, and just breathtaking views from every tee box, and the difficulty level, obviously we talked about, but it plays, it plays a little long on some holes. So it'll be interesting to see, like, how some of these kids can handle having to hit over, big bunkers and, have to span from one ridge top to another and, play wind as it's coming down draws. And it's going to be, it'll be a challenging course. Could see scores up a little bit, but at the same time, what an awesome experience for a high school kid. And I'm jealous slightly.
Yeah, that's going to be a really exciting match. That's on Thursday. And so we'll keep an eye out to see who wins that there. I know Sammy Sint from St. Mary's on the girls' side has been on fire this golf season. So, okay. And then tennis is coming to North Idaho this weekend.
Yeah. There's a lot of big, we don't talk about tennis too much, but, I know that the Inland Empire invites in Spokane this weekend, and, that's a huge tournament. You'll have probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 schools represented. They play at 11 different sites around Spokane, from mixed doubles to singles to doubles, and there's different levels you can be in. Each site has their own individual tournament, and it's like a 32-person bracket. But the cool part is that, making it to Saturday is a big deal. If you're playing on Saturday in that event, regardless of if it's in the championship bracket or in the consolations, they kind of split them up, and you'll go to like Mount Spokane or Meade High School, or, in the past they've done that, and they've had people out in the valley and stuff too. But that's a big time event, and it's a headache for a coach because you have to try to be 11 places at one time. But you talk about competitive tennis, it's probably the premier event in the Northwest, and it's a really, really, really neat thing to see. And the weather's going to be unbelievable. We're looking at like low 70s sunshine on Friday and Saturday. So it's sunburn weather. And, You know, it's going to be, I know they've been waiting all season for finally to have like no snow show up during an event. And so you're going to see it now. And I would expect to see, you know, teams like Coeur d'Alene, Sandpoint to have some kids that play pretty darn well. And they represent very well this weekend.
And I feel like Lewiston and Moscow are always right there too in tennis. So yeah, should be an exciting time. And I misspoke. It's in Spokane, but it's in the region this weekend.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really exciting. And we'll see who stands out from that. And we'll come back next week and update you on all the biggest stories again from North Idaho. Scaggs, good luck with the wedding planning.
Thanks. We got a venue and a photographer, so at least we'll have pretty pictures and have somewhere to at least do our nuptials. So
hey, you get food figured out. That's really the big three, right? Venue, right. Photos, food. You're good.
Yeah, and then the honeymoon, obviously. But yeah, so we got that figured out too, which is good. So the planning short amount of time and a lot's been done, so it's been good.
You know, as much of a following as we have from Bonner's Ferry here on the Prepcast, they really enjoy your work, Ryan. I bet you could get like the keys to the city if you went there for your honeymoon. They just here you go, have the run of the town.
If they want to throw some freebies my way, I'd be more than willing to accept. But yeah. Nothing like that says wedding destination like Bonner's Ferry, Idaho. Yeah. No, it is beautiful there though. Like that is, I talked about it during football and ranted and raved. It was the coolest environment I was at all season. Last year was Bonner's Ferry. Like you talk about a cool town that just loves their kids and the athletics. They do it right up there. It's a really fun experience.
Yeah, and that's why we love doing this every week, breaking down the biggest stories from North Idaho, shining the spotlight on teams and players that deserve it. And so we'll be back again to do it all next week. Until then, for Ryan Scaggs, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning in to the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.